So let's get over to our Jim DeFede right now. And Jim, we've gotten our hands on the new indictment following these raids and the strike, and it's much different from the one in 2020 in the sense that there are more people added to it.
Yeah, there's some interesting names that are now appearing in this indictment we expected, most notably the First Lady of Venezuela, or the former First Lady, Celia Adela Flores. And also, in going through the indictment, Nicolas Maduro's son was indicted by the Southern District of New York. He's known as the Nicolasito, or the Little Prince. So we don't know where he is. That's an interesting thing. Also, this indictment now includes the head, or the alleged head of Trente de Agua, the gang that the Trump administration has made so much of their focus, as well as the Interior and Justice Minister of Venezuela currently is also under this indictment. And I'll just read it just a little bit to you. For over 25 years, leaders of Venezuela have abused their position of public trust and corrupted once legitimate institutions to import tons of cocaine into the United States. Since his early days in Venezuelan government, Maduro has tarnished every public office he has held. As a member of Venezuela's National Assembly, Maduro moved loads of cocaine under the protection of Venezuelan law enforcement. Nicolas Maduro is now sits atop a corrupt, illegitimate government that for decades has leveraged government power to protect and promote illegal activity, including drug trafficking. That drug trafficking has enriched the entrenched Venezuela political and military elite, including the Minister of the Interior and Justice, and the former Minister of Interior and Justice, as well as the wife of Nicolas Maduro. So as you can sort of see, that's a lot. Now, one of the questions I immediately have is, as we've talked about all morning, so they've captured Maduro, they've captured his wife, but there are many other people who are listed as senior government officials in this indictment and in previous indictments who remain in place in Venezuela. And this indictment talks about the entrenched elites within Venezuela. How will they now respond now that Maduro is gone?
You know, Jim, I've been speaking to Venezuelan friends of mine here in South Florida. One of the things that they bring up is just what you were talking about, that when we went in to get Maduro, they didn't get everyone else around him, his top people. What kind of problems does that present?
Look, this is the issue that I think we've been touching on all morning, which is, you can go in and do a snatch and grab like this. This was an amazing operation by the U.S. military, extraordinary what they were able to accomplish. But then the question becomes, what next? And if you are not willing to have U.S. troops on the ground in Venezuela to follow up, to guarantee future elections, then what is all this for at the end of the day if those entrenched elements remain and simply continue to exert power? The real question is, what do the Venezuelan people in Venezuela do? Do they take to the streets? And if they do take to the streets and the government begins using violence towards those protesters, what does the Trump administration do then? So again, we are waiting in less than 30 minutes to hear from the president. We want to know and understand what the plan is moving forward. This is an amazing headline for South Florida, that Nicolas Maduro, who is an authoritarian, he has been repressive, he is illegitimate by all those standards, by international standards. But what comes next? So you can get the headline, but what happens next?
Yeah, we were just speaking with Representative Jimenez earlier, and he was speaking with Machado, who was involved in the last election there, and talking about possibly what this means on her front on that. There's a lot of questions, a lot of players, a lot of parts at work, but I think especially for here in South Florida, Venezuelans are wondering, what does this mean for the TPS status? Does this mean that that may be put on pause, given the unrest? What's going to happen now?
I would tend to doubt that he will reinstate TPS for Venezuelans. If anything, this becomes an argument to continue deportations at some point. Even though you could make the argument, and I think there is justification to make the argument, Venezuela is more dangerous today, at least right now, than it was previously. So, we're going to have to see what happens with TPS, but I'd be highly skeptical if Donald Trump wants to signal to his base that he's alleviating any pressure whatsoever on the Venezuelan, those who are in this country illegally, in Donald Trump's opinion, including those who were on TPS who he had revoked.